Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is lesson 14. In this lesson, we will be covering the difference between neighbor versus neighborhood. This is one with ESL students. Very often they may use neighborhood when they should be using neighbor. So let's start. Let's look at the definitions. Let's clarify everything first. When you're talking about your neighbor, of course, very simply, that just means someone who lives near you. Always use neighbor when you are talking about individual or specific people who live near you. Then you should be using neighbor. I gave you some examples. For example, my neighbor's dog pooped on my lawn. Yes, you're talking about a particular neighbor. It's probably this neighbor that has a dog that's annoying you, that's pooped on your lawn probably a number of times. So you're not talking about many neighbors. You're not generally talking about them. You're talking about somebody very specific. So in this case, you definitely use neighbor. Number two, my upstairs neighbor walks heavily, and I often hear his footsteps. All right. I like to throw this in because we sometimes do say upstairs neighbor, downstairs neighbor. Especially if you live in an apartment. If you say your upstairs neighbor, that would be your neighbor who lives in the apartment directly above you. So we do use it that way. Again, it's somebody very specific. It's a particular person you're talking about. My upstairs neighbor walks heavily. Yeah, you've heard people complain about this. They're boom, boom, boom. Maybe you hear the footsteps on your ceiling. Walks heavily, and I often hear his footsteps. Again, somebody very specific. My next door neighbor, this is good because we can kind of throw in how we use the word neighbor. You usually have two next door neighbors, the person who lives to the right of you and the person who lives to the left of you. Those are the neighbors that would be considered your next door neighbor. Whether you live in a house, if you live in a house on a street, as long as you have one house to the right of you and one house to the left of you, then you'll have two next door neighbors. It's possible you may only have one if you live on the corner. In an apartment, again, as long as your apartment is kind of in the middle, you might have a neighbor to your right and a neighbor to your left. So my next door neighbor is very friendly. Okay, again, you definitely use neighbor. You would not use neighborhood in this sort of situation. All right, so when do we use neighborhood? The nearby area that surrounds someone and the people who live in it. Yeah, especially when you are focusing on the area, the streets around your home, then that is your neighborhood. It's a little difficult to say exactly how big it is. I think in most people's mind it's somewhere in what I would call like a 5-block radius. So if you were the point in the middle, go 5 blocks in any direction. That's more or less, I think, what people think of as kind of like their neighborhood. Okay, good. So, again, when we say neighborhood, focus on the area. Okay, good. So, just like I said, always use neighborhood when focusing on the area around where you live. And here's some typical examples. It is important, it is important to check out the neighborhood before buying a house. Yes. Here you're definitely focusing on the area. And this is maybe true good advice. If you want to buy a house, you want to look at the area, is it a safe area? Is there crime? If you have children, you might be wondering, are there schools nearby? There's a lot of things that you might want to focus on before you move to a new area. So that's what we say. Yes, it is important to check out the neighborhood. So check out the area. Definitely use neighborhood in that situation. All right, here they say, my neighborhood has convenient transportation. That might be another thing that you're checking out. Especially if you don't have a car, you want to know, are there a lot of buses, or is there a train station, a local city train station like a subway or mass transit in that sense. Okay, if you do use the word neighborhood in reference to people who live near you, it is always used in a very general sense. Okay, so remember here, when I said neighborhood, we say it could refer to an area, so that's easy, you always know the area. But this is where some of the confusion comes in with students, because even when there's a translation, sometimes the word people is in there, and that's why I think students sometimes mistakenly use it for individual people. We'd probably only use it when we're talking about people in general. And to be honest, not often. Doesn't come up often a lot. But here might be one example where you might be talking about people in a general sense. So yes, again, so let me repeat that idea. If you do use the word neighborhood in reference to the people who live near you, it is usually used in a very general sense, so not somebody specific. So you could say my neighborhood has a lot of diversity. Alright, so what does that mean? That means that you probably have a lot of people from different ethnic backgrounds who live near you. It's not just all one race. So you could say it that way. And here the word neighborhood, you could be referring to the people in general. You could also be referring to the area too at the same time. So it kind of covers both at the same time. But it could be, if you are trying to emphasize the idea of the people that live in that area, this is one example that would work. So my neighborhood has a lot of diversity. All right, here's the next point to be very careful about, because this is where students sometimes make a mistake, where a student of ESL, where it's English as their second language, might make a big mistake and might look foolish to make a mistake in this sense. So, never use neighborhood for a specific person. This is always wrong. So if somebody said, my neighbor is a policeman, my neighbor is a policeman is correct. My neighborhood is a policeman. Of course, you can't say that. You're only talking about one person. So the correct way to say it would be, my neighbor is a policeman. You might be more specific. You might say, like, one of the neighbors on my street is a policeman. Or my next door neighbor is a policeman. So it's even more likely you would be more specific in saying, exactly who or where they live as well. But you would never say my neighborhood is a policeman, because I'm sure not everyone in your neighborhood is a policeman. And then you would probably say, many of my neighbors or most of my neighbors are policemen, but that's not likely. Alright, and we pretty much covered that. I just threw in a few other terms that we use in regard to neighbor. That's kind of interesting, that sometimes comes up when you are talking about neighbors and neighborhood. Sometimes we say that somebody might have a nosy neighbor. Somebody who is nosy, they want to know your business. And so if we say a nosy neighbor, a neighbor who is overly curious about your personal business. It always seems like in every neighborhood there might be at least one person like this. They stop, they talk to you, they want to know your name, what do you do, and then they may even get more personal. Are you married? Do you have a boyfriend? How long have you been dating? Or if your job, they might say your job. How much money do you make? I mean, they may really be pushing it. That might make you uncomfortable. And this sort of a person we would refer to as a nosy neighbor. And the other one term, the last term to cover for this lesson is neighborly. We often say this, to be neighborly. Being friendly and helpful towards one's neighbors. In the U.S., sometimes if it's a small town, if somebody moved in that was close to you, it might be neighborly to knock on their door, say hello, maybe bake a cake for them, and welcome them to the neighborhood. That would be very neighborly. Or if you see that they have some trouble, with their house, I don't know, maybe snow is blocking their driveway, and they need help shoveling snow, or an emergency came up, and you could do something for them. That's what we say. You could be neighborly. You could give them some help or aid, just being a nice person. So to be neighborly towards someone. Okay, I hope that clarifies it. Again, just to review quick, neighbor used for a specific or individual person who lives near you. Use neighborhood for the area. That covers really most of it. When you're focusing on the surroundings or the area. And like I said, they only use neighborhood with people if it's in a very general sense. Okay, I hope that that clarifies it.